4. Jill. Kennedy and Sydney said they were going up to the mountains and asked if I wanted to come. Kennedy sat cross-legged on her bed with a pill bottle and a white square of toilet paper on her lap. "Hey, bae." She popped open the pill bottle and poured a small white oval into her palm. "You want a Vicodin?" She crushed the pill bottle between 2 quarters and dusted it into the center of the toilet paper. She wrapped the paper into a small bulb, twisted the ends into a stem, and popped it down her throat. "You bitches ready?" I asked if she was okay to drive. She nodded. I'm fantastic to drive. We hauled out of the neighborhood, and she weaved her Passat up through the mountains, drifting back and forth over the yellow lines. On the stereo, a deep voice sang about a secret boy with secret plans. Beyond the trees and cliffs, the clouds had held round, roiling shapes, cosmic towers and cathedrals shaped by pink, yellow, and blue sunlight. I took my phone out and snapped a few pictures through the window. I texted Tyler one of the pictures, but he didn't respond. It was almost dark when we got there. We parked in an empty dirt lot, got out, and started up an overgrown trail, leading to a wide wooden platform. We climbed to the top. Woods and mountains rolled out around us. Pulsing bulbs atop skinny, far-off towers glowed red, like dragon eyes. Tiny Kinsfield far below, a cluster of lights pushing against the night. Dark clouds moved in from the distance. I took a picture of myself and deleted it. Kennedy talked about the guys she wanted to fuck, and Sydney mostly just nodded and said, "Yeah, he's hot." They asked about me and Tyler, but I didn't really like talking about that stuff, so I just said everything was fine. We talked about graduation and how we should all move to South America and live in the rainforests and fight off loggers, smoke cocoa leaves and sabotage equipment and shit, Kennedy said. Like some Calamity Jane shit. Like we'd be fucked up cowgirls. Dark clouds fell over Kinsfield, a skinny wire of lightning tearing down to earth. We climbed down from the platform and jogged back to the car, getting in just as the few drops were falling. It was a downpour by the time we got back to the main road. Kennedy retched the wheel and swerved the car over the line into the other lane. "Motherfucker." "What's up?" I said. "Fucking shitholes threw fucking rocks in the road." She smashed the horn and shrieked through the window. "Hope you get dick cancer." Sydney shouted, "Look out!" Something thudded hard against the grill. Kennedy hit the brakes and threw her hazards on. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," Sydney whispered. "What do you mean you don't know? You saw it, right?" "Like an animal." We all got out. The rain like soft needles. There was a big dent in her bumper. "Motherfucker!" Flecks of gray matter stuck in the headlights, like gray paper. Something bleated behind us. "Oh God." Sydney turned away. "It's just like a deer," Kennedy said. "That's so fucked up." Sydney clutched her fist to her mouth. "Shut up. It's like millions of deers out here." "Should we call someone?" "Who? Who should we call?" Behind us, the lip of the road, a small oval, too dark to make out, loped and turned, fluttered. It screamed again. "Okay, let's go, let's go, let's go." And we piled back in and left. Kennedy said, "That was a deer, right?" Sydney said, "Yeah," and so did I. Amir. Me, Tyler, and Marlon hiked up to the Puffer's Drive quarry and threw rocks into the road, waiting to see if any cars would hit them. "Here it comes." A red SUV tearing around the curve. "This is so shitty," Marlon whispered. "This is such a shitty idea." Classic Marlon. "Come on," Tyler whispered. "If it was me driving through here, I'd be pissed as shit. But it's not you, so it's funny." The SUV swerved over the yellow line and rolled on past the pile. Shit. We smoked more weed and cigarettes and waited, sweat drowning our crevices raw and mosquitoes nipping at our skin. There was another exhaust rumble. Tyler drowned the rest of the whiskey and chucked the bottle into the road. The glass shattered, twinkling gray and blue in the moonlight. Only the bottle's neck remained intact, forming a long, jagged shiv, sticking upright ahead of the rocks. Headlights sawed out from around the bend and through the void. "Come on," Tyler mumbled. "Come on." It was a familiar pickup truck, a stars and bars flags wafting above the driver's seat. It swerved toward the opposite lane, but it was too late. The right tire tore over the rocks and glass and burst like a gunshot. The truck skidded and slumped to a halt. Its doors clicked open. A young Fox Southern accent yelled, "What the fuck?" through the heat. A second boy stepped out from the passenger side, Chris and Tad McCraig. "Oh shit," Marlon whispered. Chris turned toward us and we sunk further into the brush. He turned back and stared at the busted tire. Marlon leaned into my ear and whispered, "You need to go." I nodded and tapped Tyler's shoulder. He held a finger to his lips. "Fuck this, I am out." Marlon twisted around on the rocks leading down the ravine. A cluster came loose behind his feet, plunking down the side. The McCraigs turned their eyes finally caught us. They came running. We slid down the slope, sucking in and choking on small black bugs, plumes of dust and pollen erupting underfoot, a roar above. "You cocksuckers!" Chris and Tad came sliding after us. We hit flat earth and took off through moist, mossy leaves and skinny tangles of vines. We ran until we hit a wide brook. Behind us, the McCraigs cried out, "Kill you!" We pulled our phones out of our pockets and held them over our heads and waded through the waters. Our sneakers slipped over round, slimy rocks as the waters rose to our thighs. We climbed up the opposite bank and kept running until our breaths gave out. Okay. There was nothing behind us now but pillars of brown and white bark, silent except for cicadas and humming flies, the brook's gurgle and night birds fluttering overhead. We clear? We clear. We got our bearings and smoked a bowl. "Yo," Tyler said, "that was like magic. That's like literally magic right there. Bending shit to your whim and shit." We started laughing, me and him at least. Marlon fumed quietly, staring at something. His face gradually changed. He pointed the cigarette towards something behind me. "What is that?" "What's what?" "Is that a dead cat?" "Fuck you." "No, for real, is that a dead fucking cat?" "Fuck you." By this time I turned around to see what he was talking about. It was a silhouette in the dirt, a pile of rotting leaves, but it did look like a tiny body. Skin charred black, but slicked wet. Tyler bent over it. "Huh. It's just some leaves," I said. "It does look like a body, though. A little fucking goblin or something." "Huh," Tyler said again. "Yeah." I passed the bowl to Marlon. Tyler took a picture of the leaf pile. We talked a little bit until thunder crackled overhead, followed by a heavy drizzle. We headed back, trying to remember where we'd left Marlon's car. Lou. My parents took me to Boston to see Uncle Max. Uncle Max put sparklers in my belly. He tuned in when I spoke and would always give me a book about Greek or Egyptian mythology, or New England ghost stories, or popular science when I'd see him. My parents had knives for him. Sometimes they would take away the book he gave me, calling it inappropriate. When I was little, I asked if he was a bad person. "It's not that he's a bad person," Mom said, and trailed off. We parked at the rail station and took the train into the city. Boston was what castles must have been like, packed with women and men with knives in their faces. Uncle Max lived in an apartment building in Fenway. He met us outside. "Good to see you, sis." He leaned in and gave Mom a hug. Mom returned it, all boarded up, her body distant from his. He shook Dad's hand. "Hi, Tom." Then he turned to me with firework eyes. "Jesus, I can't believe how big you are. You're starting to make me feel old. Here." He pulled out a book from his back pocket, a light purple jacket. Picture of a metal wrench rising from grass and leaves. My parents glanced knives at each other, then knives at Max. "Thank you," I said. "Any time, palsy. That book changed my life, and I hope it does something good for you, too." "I can hold on to that, sweetie." Mom took the book from my hands and put it in her purse. We took the train to the Museum of Fine Art. Max said it was the last week they were showing the Goya exhibit. "Now museum, now you don't," Dad said. None of us laughed. Outside the museum, a naked bronze man rode a horse, holding his arms splayed to his side like Jesus and his mouth gasping toward the curled clouds overhead. The building behind it was a pearl fortress. Inside, naked putty men and women boarded up faces sprawled across rocks, or clubbed animals with blurred forests. Bleached tingly torsos twisted limbless, brown fruit soiled forever. I'm not sure I'd ever been to a museum before. My parents pushed through the Goya exhibit. They said they didn't understand why someone would paint ugly things, their knives sharpened on their cheeks. There was this one painting, 3 naked figures with blotched faces floating in space, sing-song pointed hats on their scalps. They grasped at a struggling man while another, with his head, shoulders and back covered in a white sheet, pushed through void with his hands out. I couldn't look away. I wanted to live inside it. The floating people looked like my insides. As we left, Mom shook herself out and said she was glad it was over. We went to dinner at a French bistro. Dad asked me to lead us in prayer. Max got up, saying he had to powder his nose, and headed toward the bathroom. He got back just as we finished. Mostly Max and my parents gave each other soft knives throughout dinner, but at the end of the night, he still told Mom he loved her. He gave me a big hug and told me to keep on rocking in the free world. He said, "Bye, Tom," to Dad. Rain needled dents against our car on the ride home, while my parents sharpened their knives on Max. "I think he's getting worse," Mom said. "Was he ever any different?" "In that book," she wilted, even though I could still hear her perfectly. I know. He does it because he knows it'll upset us." "I know." "And, hun, yeah?" Stop. But it was too late. The bumper shocked through a clatter of objects, plunking and scraping against the undercarriage as we rode over them. Dad smashed the brake pedal. "You've got to be kidding me." He got out of the car into the smeared rain, me beneath Mom's umbrella, and ogled at the damage. Half the bumper was split, its foam inside spilling out. Rocks and bits of glass shimmered wet under headlights. Mom asked if we should call AAA, but Dad said he didn't have reception. "I can still get us home, I bet." We got back inside and Dad twisted the key. The engine gargled sore, but he was right. He still got us home. Amir. Marlon dropped us off at Tyler's place and took off. He never slept over at Tyler's like I did. Fuck that, I have a bed. Tyler went up to his room and I went down to the basement. I lay on the gross couch but couldn't wind down, still riding the Adderall I'd taken earlier. I pulled my phone out, but it was dead, so I got up and looked around for a charger, swept the corners and stacks of dead 1.4 and RC cables, got down on my hands and knees and felt under the couch. No cables, just stacks of paper and cardboard compressed against the couch's underside. I grabbed some and slid them out. There were sheets of lined paper and torn off pizza box lids from Utopia, all sharpied up, words and pictures, names and dates and stuff like The Serpent Thirsts, The Wasp Smile, Close Luna, stuff about towers and rope men, drawings of crude little upside-down arches, like static blips on a life support screen, or a stack of broken birds' wings, an intricate spiral sprouting more spirals. Google Map printouts of the town with lines drawn all over, like vines or veins, crosshatches, and more of those little arches. Photocopies of photos and newspaper clippings taped together, hundreds of individual pages. I went through them until daylight, when I heard Tyler or his mom walking around upstairs. I stacked everything back up, slid them under the couch, and tried to go to sleep again.